Morning everyone, and welcome to a very quick, breaking news special edition of On the Whistle, because we've got some fairly significant developments at Sunderland to talk about. The club believed to be quite close now to appointing Florent Ghisolfi to the off-pitch operation, if you like. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how this has come about, who Florent is, what you need to know about him, and how it might impact the dynamics at the club moving forward. Just wanted to start by saying two things really. One, this isn't confirmed yet. It's not a done deal, so it shouldn't be taken that way, although it does look quite likely now. I think the second thing to say is this is clearly a really, really prominent appointment. It's going to have a lot of implications for how Sunderland operate. A lot of the detail on that is something that we're only going to really learn in time when this is all confirmed and when various people have spoken. And so this is really just kind of dipping our toes into to have a bit of a think about what this might look like. It's certainly nothing definitive. It's probably one that we'll come back and talk about at length, maybe somewhere down the line, if indeed it does go through, possibly next week. But I just thought it would be kind of useful to give a bit of an overview about what I know so far about this. Hopefully that'll be something of interest to you. But as I say, this isn't done yet, and it's not absolutely definitive how this is all going to shake out. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of insight, but that's kind of the background that I think is worth remembering. So who is Florent Ghisolfi? In short, he's one of the most highly rated sporting directors in France. And I think while there's still a lot to kind of suss out here and work out how it's all going to play out, this is probably Sunderland's biggest statement of intent yet, I think, since winning promotion. They're pretty serious about trying to establish themselves at the top level over the next few years. So Ghisolfi has just left AS Roma, where he was sporting director. There's a huge structural change going on there. Fair, I think Sunderland fans will be wondering, well, why is Sunderland hiring someone who's just left Roma after a year? Clearly it didn't have the impact there that he would have liked. I think there's a few mitigating circumstances here. So Ghisolfi was appointed last summer after the owners had appointed Daniel De Rossi, obviously a club legend, on a permanent deal after he'd had a successful spell as a temporary manager. A really difficult, turbulent season for Roma, so De Rossi didn't last very long at all. De Rossi was then replaced by Ivan Juric, which was a big sort of style shift. Again, that didn't really work out. That also had a lot of implications for some of the players that Ghisolfi and the club had signed. The very obvious one being Enzo Lefebvre, who'd been bought to play as an attacking eight, and Daniel De Rossi's very sort of modern possession-based style. Ivan Juric, very different. A lot more about physicality, intensity. Juric didn't last long either. He was gone by the time of the year, and Roma then turned back to Claudio Ranieri, a club legend. Obviously, everyone knows what he's done for Roma and of course for Leicester. Ranieri went on an unbelievable run, actually led Roma to 5th, and they were within minutes of qualifying for the Champions League, which obviously would have been their target for the season met. There's been a big restructure in the aftermath of the season, so Claudio Ranieri's been appointed as an advisor to the ownership group. They've brought in Gianpiero Gasperini as the head coach. Obviously Gasperini, who's had an absolutely astonishing run of success at Atalanta in recent years, so a really ambitious appointment from them. And as part of that, they've also appointed a new sporting director, and Ghisolfi has departed this week. Really interesting that Roma's statement 2 or 3 days ago made reference to the fact that Ghisolfi was leaving to pursue a new professional challenge. Now, at the time, we certainly did not know that was Sunderland, but it looks increasingly like that's what it's going to be. So, to give you a bit of background about how Ghisolfi got to Roma, and this is probably the bit that I think should excite Sunderland fans. So, Ghisolfi was a player for a long time in the French leagues. Initially started his post-playing career as an assistant manager, moved to Lorient to work as the assistant manager to the head coach at the time. Now, at that point, Régis Lebris was, of course, the Lorient B manager before he eventually graduated to take over. So he's someone who knows Lebris very well, and they'll know and understand each other very well. It's not the reason he's been appointed by Sunderland, but it just gives you a little bit of an indication about, some of those relationships. Where Ghisolfi really made his name was he was then appointed sporting director by RC Lens, and they went on a period of 3 years of quite spectacular success, really. So they were in League 2 at the time. They changed manager halfway through the season. Ghisolfi will obviously have been involved as that sporting director, promoted Frank Heiss to the role. They then went on to win promotion at the end of that season, albeit it was the COVID curtailed season, you might remember. But they then had 2 7th place finishes in League One. in their first 2 seasons back at the top level under Hauser, which was obviously an absolutely fantastic achievement. A lot of players who came in established themselves as key players in that team. Some of them will go on to be sold for huge profits. The Austrian defender Kevin Danso is probably the great example of that, picked up by Lens for a few million euros from Augsburg, and obviously went on to sign for Tottenham for over 20 million pound last year. So that's kind of where he made his name, utilising different markets, bringing in players who maybe didn't have huge reputations at the time, who went on to be really good players at League One level. That then saw him get appointed by Nice, and again, a really fruitful couple of years there. The second season, they finished 5th, just outside the Champions League. He was involved in the appointment of Francesco Farioli, who, of course, as you will remember, was linked to Sunderland quite infamously when Tony Mowbray was in charge. Again, some really significant recruitment successes there, and ultimately a period of sporting success. That was then what attracted him to Roma. And so, as I say, while that kind of appointment didn't really work out for Roma or for him in the end, albeit they finished 5th and have some decent foundations now, I think you can see why Sunderland are probably looking past that. They're very much looking, I think it is sort of 5 years of pretty significant success at the top tier in France. So the obvious kind of question is why is Sunderland bringing in another sporting director? Again, we'll have to kind of wait for the full explanations and discussions on this in time. My strong understanding at this point is this isn't a replacement for Christian Speakman. I don't think anything needs to be said about, ultimately, while there's been a lot of debate over the years, what Christian Speakman has achieved at Sunderland and the role he's had in building this squad, in rebuilding and strengthening the fantastic work that had been going on for many years in the academy. We can sort of understand Speakman's significance and ongoing importance to the club by the fact that, as some of you may have read on the Sunderland Echo website, he spent the first half of this week before fixture release day abroad, meeting agents, meeting potential recruits, doing that work. So I don't think this is about a replacement. I think it's about a recognition from Sunderland that they were out of the Premier League for 8 years. They were in League One for 4 years. The other Premier League clubs have a big advantage over them, and they need to keep building their football and structures. They need to keep building their infrastructure if they're going to have any chance of surviving at this level. And I think that's where Ghisolfi sort of comes into the equation. I think the belief is that he will bring a wealth of contacts, very obviously, but also a wealth of knowledge and expertise of the kind of markets that Sunderland are going to have to sort of try and recruit in. We know that they are really well resourced now because of the Premier League revenues, because of the Joe Bellingham sale. Having said that, so is every other team in the league. And so it's going to be, again, on Sunderland to be clever, to try and look in markets where other clubs, may not have the same level of knowledge, may not have the same level of contacts, and see if, while they're going to be spending some significant sums, if they can unearth some kind of gems, if you like, who maybe other Premier League clubs don't know as much about, and give them that platform to hopefully go on and grow. So it's a really, really interesting appointment. As I say, my understanding is it's essentially, Speakman's remit obviously is vast at the club. It incorporates everything from managing contracts. He ultimately is accountable for the academy operation, of course, first team recruitment. I think this is about sort of sharing those responsibilities a little bit about and trying to add some extra value and expertise. Now, obviously, only in time, if this does happen, only in time will we know how those dynamics will play out, whether it'll be a positive, how it's going to work for the club. There's clearly an element of risk in adding another very, very senior figure with a lot of responsibility, with a lot of ideas. You never quite know how those personalities are going to play out. Obviously, the fact that Ghisolfi will be well known to Labrise, I can personally only see as a positive. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. There's a lot we don't know about this yet, and there's a lot that we're going to have to assess as it plays out and learn. And as I say, hopefully I'll be back with a bit of a longer piece maybe next week. But I just wanted to give you a bit of insight into who Ghisolfi is and why Sunderland seem to be doing this, which on the face of it is a real kind of surprise move. I have obviously some reservations, not out of sort of negativity, just out of you never quite know how it's going to work out, and interested to learn more about how the responsibilities are going to be split, who's going to have certain responsibilities for certain things, because obviously what you don't want to add is any friction or any more, what's the best way to put it? You don't want to complicate this important recruitment process anymore in such an important transfer window. But I do think this is a big statement of intent to potentially go and bring Ghisolfi in, because he had a lot of interest from across Europe. Obviously done some excellent work in the French top tier in recent years, really highly rated. someone who's got a good track record of identifying talent. And I do feel like, although we don't know how it's going to play out and we can't say yet whether it's going to be a success or not, I do feel like this is a bit of a signal from Sunderland that they're really serious about making a splash at Premier League level, and hopefully it can give us some excitement about the signings that will happen in the next few weeks and months. So I'm going to leave it there because, as I say, I don't want to oversell it. We're still a lot we're learning about this breaking news. But I really hope that's just given you a little bit of insight and background into this breaking news. And as ever, thanks for watching. I just wanted to say quickly as well, thank you so much to everyone who's bought a ticket for the live show next Thursday at the Bridge Hotel Vaults. We're going to have plenty to talk about. Maybe this is something that will come up. Really overwhelmed by the response and by how many of you are coming down. I'm really excited to see you all and have a good chat about all things Sunderland. So if you're coming, I'll see you then. If not, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with some more videos soon. Cheers.